Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ruben's History Show. So today I'm going to talk about Alexander the Great, who was the king of ancient Macedonia from 336 BC all the way to 323 BC until he died. And so he became king when he was at the age of 20. But before that, I'm going to talk about the details about his childhood and a little bit about his biography before he became the king of Macedonia. So, historians say that Alexander the Great was born between July 20th and July 21st, July 356 BC, to Philip the Second of Macedonia, and also to Alypius of Epirus, who was the queen of Epirus. And so he was born in Pella, which was the capital of the Macedonian kingdom at the time, and he was born in that area. Yeah, which is an ancient city. So he was born in the ancient city of Pella on the sixth day of the ancient month of Hecatobion, if that's how you pronounce it. And so Philip had 7 or 8 wives. Some reports say that he had 7 or 8 wives during that time. And Alypius was the daughter of Neoptolemus the First, who was the king of Epirus at that time. And so, also on the same day, according to Plutarch, who was a famous Greek-Roman biographer and historian, said that on the same day when Alexander the Great was born, Philip, his father, was preparing a siege on the city of Pandia, which was on the peninsula of Chesidice, if that's how you pronounce it. And then also on the same day, the temple of Artemis in Epirus was burned to the ground. And then those were the reports that happened. Those were the events that happened on the day when Alexander was born. And then, at the age of 13, his father received a horse, which Alexander would name Bucephalus, and he would take the horse into battle, like for example in the Persian Empire or the Academian Empire, and he would also take the horse while he was going to India. So, and then later on, he was also one of the greatest figures because he was worshipped as a god. He was kind of like a god because of what he did while he was fighting in the Persian Empire, while he was fighting the Persians. But then later on, his father was assassinated. Philip the Second of Macedonia was assassinated by his bodyguard while watching the wedding of his daughter Cleopatra of Macedonia and Neoptolemus the Second of Epirus. And so then his father was killed, and later on the bodyguard was killed by this Macedonian officers during that time. But then, at the age of 18, Alexander led an army in the 335 BC, and then he took his army to the north, and he captured Thebes, and he sold the population into slavery. The Greeks were put in. The whole population of Thebes was sold into slavery. But then, at the age of 20, Alexander became the king of Macedonia at the age of 20. So he was kind of the youngest person to be appointed the king of Macedonia during that period. And so he continued his father's plan to invade Persia in 334 BC. So he wanted to continue his father's legacy because his father did not continue that plan because he died. And so Alexander would continue that plan. And so by 334 BC, he would arrive in Asia Minor, and he would go on to fight the Persians during that time. And he also put his spear in the ground. And then he said, I will conquer all of Persia. And then he went to continue his campaigns against the Persians. As soon as Alexander came into Persia, the Persians were looking for Alexander as he came into Persia. So because they wanted to find him or even find him and kill him while he came into Parthia. So he thought the Persians at many battles, like for example the Battle of Isacus, which took place on November 5th, 333 BC, and he also defeated the Persian king Darius III of Persia, who was the king of Persia at the time, and he would later be defeated in battle at the time. And so but a year prior, before that, in 334 BC, Alexander liberated the Greek cities of Asia Minor, which were under the Persian rule, and he liberated the Greek cities of Asia Minor from the Persian rule, or the Academian Empire. And the Spartan king could not invade Persia in 3 years, but Alexander freed the Greek cities of Asia Minor in 3 months, because he defeated the Persians and liberated the cities there, together with his army. And he killed every Persian. He killed every Persian man. He wanted to kill any Persian that was standing in his way. And he also took Bucephalus, the horse that his father gave him, the horse that his father received while Alexander was still 13 years old. And so there was also some reports saying that Alexander the Great had blonde hair, and he was 5 feet. He was 5 feet. And so in 331 BC, he also fought the Persians at the Battle of Guantanama, if that's how you pronounce it, in the 331 BC. And he defeated the Persians, and I believe it was Darius fled into Lebanon, I believe, because he was defeated by Alexander. And later on, he would later be killed by one of Darius's soldiers, I believe it was, and he would later be killed. After he defeated the Persians, I believe it was, he went to Egypt during the winter of 331 BC. And from there, he was crowned the pharaoh, which meant you're basically like the ruler of the ancient Egypt, the ancient Egyptian civilization. So he went to the oracle of Amun-Ra, and he asked the oracle in Amun-Ra somewhere in Egypt. He asked the oracle, what do I need to become the pharaoh, the ruler of the world? And the oracle replied to Alexander. He said, you need to rule it with justice and justice. You need to rule the world with justice. And then he also asked the oracle, who am I? Who am I the son of? And the oracle replied, you are the son of God. That's what the oracle replied to Alexander. But Alexander knew who his father was. His father was Philip the Great, Philip II of Macedonia, but he was assassinated at the time by his bodyguard. While in Egypt, Alexander restored some temples in the ancient Egypt, and he restored some temples in the ancient Egypt, and that's what he did while he was staying in the ancient Egypt. But then later on, then he would return to I think he would later on return to to Macedonia, and instead of establishing a Macedonian government, he established an Egyptian government in the Macedonia during that time. And so, but then after he destroyed the Persian Empire, he attempted to invade India in the year 326 BC. But it failed because he thought that the march was long, and he decided to go back because the march was so long and he could not get further into India, and so they left India, Alexander and his troops, because his troops were tired of marching into the India. And so later on, he was also married to Roxanne, and she was the daughter of an Afghan chief during that time, during that period. And when Alexander also went to Babylonia, that's where he was living at the time. That's where he was living at that period. That was his house. And then Alexander realized that his tutor was wrong, that Aristotle was wrong, because Aristotle said that he said that the Greeks are superior than the barbarians. They're higher than the barbarians. And so Alexander went to India during that time, like I said, but then he thought it was long, and they left India. But then in the year of January 323 BC, Alexander took a fever, and he was in a coma for some time, and he was unable to speak because he received a fever during a fever at the time. And there's still rumors why did Alexander the Great die very young? Some reports were saying that he was an alcoholic and he drank too much, and some were saying that he died because he was very sick. And so those were some of the reports. Those were some of the rumors going on why Alexander the Great died while he was young. While he was in Babylon. But then when he got the fever at the age of 33, I believe it was, he died at the age of 32. So he died at the age of 32, and one of his physicians said that if the fever does not go away in 6 days, or between 6 or 7 days, he will die. So that's what Alexander the Great's physician said. So then on June 23rd, 323 BC. No, June 11th, between June 11th and June 10th, 323 BC, Alexander the Great would die at the age of 30 because of the fever he suffered during that period. And then he would die, and then a bunch of his generals would take over different areas of the areas. Like, for example, there were a lot of cultural changes shortly after the death of Alexander. Like, for example, in the Ptolemaic Egypt, and Egypt would fall under the rule of the Greeks, and then and then Syria would fall under the rule of Syria would later be ruled by some of Alexander's generals, and then his body would be taken to Syria. But then his body was hijacked by one of his generals, which was Ptolemy the Soter, who would be the first pharaoh of Ptolemaic Egypt, which was under Greek rule. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, so please drop a like and subscribe, and I'll talk about more history of ancient Greece and other videos on ancient Rome and ancient Egypt in my future videos. So please drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.